This is the process shot. I'm Michael. I'm stuck in a haunted movie theater, and I've had the displeasure of seeing London Fields, a sort of fantasy mystery drama from 2018, directed by Mathew Cullen. Set in a London faced with turmoil and crisis, it follows a small group of three men: Samson, an author from America working on his next novel; Keith, a small time crook and professional darts player; and Guy, an upper class businessman who has seen happier days. All three are smitten with a woman named Nicola, who Samson learns has had a premonition of her death at the hands of one of the men. He decides to make this the subject of his next book, observing events from afar, while also talking with Nicola about events as they happen. Despite the film focusing heavily on these four characters and their relationships, they're pretty much stuck in one-dimensional traits with few other elements or even truly explored character arcs. The flatness of Nicola as a character is even called out in the film itself, though they do nothing about it, and so there's no real point to the movie bringing that up at all. They aren't wrong, though. Even though the story more or less revolves around her, Nicola as a character seems to only exist to push the story forward because otherwise there would be no story at all. At times it feels more like she just exists to be ogled at, which in itself doesn't happen all that much either. In any case, none of the characters feel particularly realistic, nor are they likable in spite of their unrealism. The rest of the movie's elements don't fare much better. The plotting flows pretty well, never lingering long on scenes and keeping things moving, but those things in the film's story aren't all that much interesting, dragging out a manufactured conflict which ends in a manner that you can see coming if you've ever seen a movie before. Dialogue between characters is more exaggerated than not, trying to be snappy or witty, but ultimately coming through as overly structured. Samson's narration, which drones over the film from start to finish, is even more artificial, as if he were simply reading his lines from the script page and they only had time to record one take. The worst of all of this lies in London Field's cinematography and editing, not so much because of what they get wrong, but more in that they contribute to the film's biggest underlying problem: style over substance. The movie seems to try to make up for its shortcomings by putting more focus on its imagery and editing rather than its actual story, trying to make something to look at and experience visually rather than something all around enjoyable. However, it's a style that isn't very effective, mostly because of how disconnected the film becomes due to its lack of a consistent vision. Sometimes the movie is shot traditionally, sometimes it's shot surreally, and there's never a flow or rhythm to it, such as scenes being shot with stylistic flair because of a specific character or situation. A good example of this would be a scene in which Samson is writing his novel and drafts a scene with Nicola and Keith in conversation, their dialogue pausing or changing as Samson writes and edits his word choices. It's a creative choice that never appears again, leaving you to wonder why bother to include it in the first place. The whole of London Fields may as well be asked why it bothers with anything going on. Characters are flat and generally unlikable. The story is predictable. Both of these fall back on cliches rather than attempt something creative. And where the film does try to be creative, it fails to make a true impact. Overall, it's a movie that seems to try and make some sort of artistic statement, but comes through more as a pale imitation of much better works, as though the filmmakers looked at those better movies and said, "Hey, I can do that too," and then tried. London Fields, Mathew Cullen, 2018. 1 star. I don't recommend watching it. You can do better than this. Anyways, that's it for the review. Leave a like if you want, leave a comment if you must, and subscribe if you want to see more reviews. I wish this place would show those better movies. I really do feel like these guys saw Inherent Vice and thought they could do it too.